Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending upon where you are in the world, and welcome to today's webinar. Get started with AI Inferencing at the Edge, brought to you by Tech Online, Innodisk, and broadcast by AspenCore. I'm Chris Keachin. I'll be your moderator today. We have just a few brief announcements before we begin. First, the slides will advance automatically throughout the event, and you may also download a copy of the slides by clicking on the green folder icon located at the bottom of your screen. You can participate in our Q&A session by asking questions at any time during this webinar. Just type your question into the Q&A text area located to the right of the presentation window, and then click the Submit button. Please note that we'll try to get to as many questions as we can in the time that we have left at the end of today's program. However, if we're unable to get to your individual question today, someone will get back to you after the program is over. Also at this time, we recommend that you disable your computer's pop-up blockers. This will allow the slides to advance automatically throughout the event. And at the end of the webinar, we will ask you to complete our feedback form. Your feedback will provide us with valuable information on how we can improve future events. You can also launch the survey at any time by clicking on the red survey button at the bottom of your console. And if you're experiencing any technical problems, please type your issue into the Q&A text area, and we will be glad to offer one-on-one assistance. And now, on to the presentation. Get started with AI Inferencing at the Edge. Discussing today's topic is James Shi, engineer, Innodisk. James serves as a sales engineer in Innodisk since 2019. He advises clients in areas related to technical aspects. His expertise includes flash, DRAM, CPU selection, motherboard, and graphics cards. He is immersed and engaged in the fundamentals of circuit designs and software design. It's with great pleasure that I now turn this special session over to James to begin. James, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris. Hello, everyone. And without further ado, let's get started. So today we're going to go over training versus inferencing, as well as some of the key features of the Intel Movidius Myriad chip, and what Innodisk offer in stores, and the implementation, as well as Q&A. All right, for the AI applications that are currently applied to the field right now, we got autonomous vehicles, intelligent robots, smart healthcare, smart homes, smart city, intelligent hardware, self-service stores like the Amazon Go stores, and intelligent education. With all these applications using artificial intelligence in their application, we're seeing the growth in IoT in a tremendous amount. So an overview of how this architecture works is that where data center is doing most of the heavy lifting with vendors like Supermicro and Medtronic, where they would train the models with algorithm and deep learning algorithms. And once that's done, it will go into deployment to the edge, where you will have your IPCs and components. And to go more in depth into what training versus inferencing is that in training, where you're learning a new capability from existing data, where you throw in different models, you throw in different data set that you want your algorithm to learn, right? So it's compute intensive, requires a data center, it's resource heavy, and uses higher power consumption and a long-term consistent operation. But for inferencing, it's applying the trained model to new data, right? So it's a lower consumption, a fast response time, as well as simplified and compressed model, and a lower bandwidth consumption, and at a lower cost. To put that into perspective over here, is saying that in training, you're basically molding a key, and molding a key requires a lot of information, right? You need to throw in all these different data sets with so that this model will understand what's a cat and what's not. However, on inferencing, you're giving the key to that edge application where the key is already made, and once it sees the new data, it is able to tell between what's a cat and what's not. So again, inferencing is at a lower cost and lower response time, faster response time, and requires less performance. So right here, we offer two in the solution. We have the M.2 form factor, as well as the mini PCIe form factor, and also offer a toolkit. We call it iVinyl, where it's an intuitive GUI tool integrated with the OpenVinyl available from Intel, and easy to use model management, click and run benchmark tools, as well as deployment in minutes. So looking into some of the key features of the Intel Movidius Mira X VPU, compared to its last generation, the Mira 2, it has a 10x performance compared to that, as well as the ultra low power capability, and 4 trillion operations per second, as well as 1 trillion operations per second for dedicated neural network computing. So again, some of the key features of the AI accelerator that we offer is that for the mini PCIe version, we offer one Intel Movidius chip, and for the M.2 version, we have 2 Intel Movidius chip installed, as well as a 0 to 60 white temperature graded, and a thickened golden finger at 30 micron. Over here, it's a development of the Intel OpenVinyl toolkit. This kind of shows how we simplify some of the process, where the OpenVinyl toolkit would simplify the optimization part and inferencing part to the toolkit, where it will have the edge inferencing engine, as well as the compatible with OpenCV and OpenVX with the Intel Media SDK, as well as the model optimizer, and with the support of the TensorFlow, Caffe, and MXNet. So again, another top-down view of what we offer, right? So the application and the AI module that we have with the IPC and the software that we offer, the iVinyl software, you get easy-to-use model management, you get AI benchmark tools, and rapid demo and deployment. And over here, you can see that without the iVinyl toolkit, it requires a excess amount of time where you have to install the OpenVinyl toolkit, and it's very intuitive when everything is done through command lines, where for iVinyl, everything is done in a very intuitive graphics user interface, where it can save almost 66% of time. So right here, we have a comparison of different applications and where the Intel Mira chip shines. Where in smart retail, for face recognition, is 31 times faster compared to the current usage. And for also in smart retail, for the human counting, is 18.2 times faster. And for transportation, where recognizing the license plate is 3.18 times faster, and the smart logistics is 6.12 times faster when it's trying to detect objects. And that's it for the show. And Chris, back to you with the Q&A.
All right. Thank you, James, for a great presentation. As a reminder, please fill out the form that will open up at the end of the show. Thank you in advance for filling out the feedback form. Your participation in this survey allows us to better serve you. We're going to now move on to the question and answer portion of our event. As a reminder, if you'd like to participate in our Q&A session, simply type your question into the text box located to the right of the presentation window, or you can click on the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen and then click the submit button. Again, please note that we'll try to get to as many questions as we can in the time that we have left. If we're unable to get to your individual question today, someone will get back to you after the program is over. So James, we'll take a look here. We've got quite a few questions that have already come in, and we encourage more from our audience. But our first one for you here, how can edge computing and artificial intelligence work together?
All right, that's a great question. Thank you, Chris. So to better refine the data that you mine, right, you would require kits like the AI accelerator to better extrapolate the information that's crucial to operation. And does that answer your question?
All right, thank you, James. We'll move on to another question for you here. Our next one is, how can you take advantage of edge computing?
So, like I said before, it will help transition to a more efficient data-driven world where data is where the and it's not just the data that matters, but mining and refining the data that you need on the edge at a fast response time is what's crucial here.
Okay, we've got another one kind of along the same lines asking, why is it important?
Why is it important?
Yeah,
so,
why is edge computing important?
So it's basically saying that putting all your eggs in one basket is very risky, and for edge computing, it's alleviating some of that by and having some redundancy to our organization where you have a bunch of edge devices, and they could take the data point and then refine these data instead of putting all of them in a data center.
All right, thank you, James. We'll move on to another question here for you. What application services or business strategies will be delivered from the edge computing platform?
So the applications like cloud monitoring and effective IT servicing to these units, and more clarity into the information that you collected.
All right, thank you, James. We'll move on to another question here for you. Again, to our audience, if you'd like to ask a question, simply type your question in and then click the submit button. We'll get to as many of them as we can. Our next one here, how can edge computing benefit your organization? Or what are the, what are the edge computing benefits for an organization?
So it's a concept of decentralizing and having all these different nodes that could analyze information and only send back relevant information after the inferencing is done instead of a huge data dump.
All right, thank you, James. Another question here came in that says, what are the advantages of the Innodisk AIoT memory and storage solution compared to others?
So our SSD, our solid-state drives and DRAM are built for durability, and a lot of these AIoT devices happen to be in like hazardous area where it's less than ideal for these electronics. And our solutions offer coating and white temperature as well as like anti-sulfuration to protect themselves and the data and integrity of the system. So it's basically saying that if you use other vendors, and you have the data that you need, but at some point it was affected by outside reasons. It's affected by the high temperature, the acidity in the air, and stuff like that, and that kind of hinders what your work has done, right? And our DRAM and SSD has the ability to withstand that to a degree.
All right, thank you, James. The next question here, how do we integrate AI into our organization?
So to get started with kits like AI Accelerator, that can give you preloaded models for rapid development and deployment.
All right, thank you, James. Next question here for you says, how does an AI accelerator improve the performance in edge computing?
So it's saying that it's so traditionally your edge device doesn't have a AI VPU, right? So everything is done with the local processor, local GPU, maybe even embedded into your CPU. So with this added VPU and its extra software available from Intel, the OpenVinyl and our iVinyl Toolkit, you get these pre-trained models, for example, like face recognition or license plate recognition. These pre-trained models would help you, and these models would give you a faster response time compared to using the embedded GPU that's on board.
All right, thank you, James. Another question came in asking, is Innodisk maintaining those preloaded AI algorithms?
Yes, we do. We will continuously update this tool that we have, and it is actually available for Windows only for now, and we are currently still trying our best to develop a Linux version of it.
All right, thank you, James. Another question here for you. What coding experience is needed to use iVino?
So the iVino is very simple. We have websites dedicated to show the toolkit and it's a very simple user interface. So it does not require coding experience at all.
All right, thank you, James. We'll move on to another question here for you asking, are model weights ever adjusted during edge inferencing?
That we will have to get back to Tom.
All right, thank you, James. We'll move on to another question here for you. How long does it take from the start to finish for a single question with this chip?
We'll also have to get back to you on this, Robert. We have examples, but not a single question to the chip, and then timed it.
All right, fantastic. Looks like we have one final question for you. What is the frame size used for object detection and license plate recognition?
We also have to get back to them on that.
All right, thank you, James. We'll take a quick look here. Hold on one second. Can you talk about the approximate price of the AI accelerator card and software? What is the pricing model or cost, or where do I find more information?
So they can contact us directly, and these are pricing around $100 at pop.
All right, thank you, James. And let's see here. Do you have a performance comparison for heavy and well-known object detection inferences like YOLO?
We'll have to get back to Ankit on that as well.
All right, very good. And let's take a look at one other one here. Looks like we have one last question for you. What business model is Innodisk running for Vino? Hardware-only pre-trained model for free or combined solution to sell?
So we always do a combined solution where you buy the hardware and the software is available, and we continue to support you with updates to that tool.
All right. Well, thank you, James. That looks like all the questions that we have for today. Once again, if we did not get to your question, someone will get back to you after the program is over. And for more information related to today's webinar, please visit any of the resource links in the green folder icon at the bottom of your screen. Within the next 24 hours, you'll receive a personalized follow-up email with details and a link to today's presentation on demand. Once again, we'd like to thank James for a great presentation and Q&A session, and we'd also like to thank you, our audience, for attending today's webinar, Get Started with AI Inferencing at the Edge, brought to you by Tech Online and Innodisk. This webinar is copyright 2020 by AspenCore. The presentation materials are owned by or copyright by Tech Online and Innodisk, and the individual speaker is solely responsible for his content and opinions. On behalf of our guest and Innodisk, I'm Chris Keach. Once again, we'd like to thank you for joining us, and we hope you have a great day.